Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Jobberman's 2024 International Women's Day LinkedIn Live session. Today's session is quite an interesting one because we live in an environment and a world whereby women have to kind of decide or be very vocal about what they need and demand for inclusion. But these are things that should come naturally. Today's session, we will discuss about accelerating inclusion. How do workplaces, you know, propel inclusion for ladies and for women in the workplace? What strategies do workplaces have in place? What agencies, what NGOs, what are the works that are being done for women in the workplace? And how can we foster that level of inclusion that we hope to achieve in the world going forward? For the topic of our day today, we're talking about accelerating inclusion, strategies for cultivating diversity and equity in the workplace. And I will be moderating today's session. My name is Samantha Ifezulike. I am the head people and culture at Jobberman Nigeria. As we all know, Jobberman is Nigeria's leading recruitment platform. So beyond recruitment, beyond executive recruitment and the other products we offer, we also play a role in bridging the gap in terms of talent acquisition and then placing young people in jobs also. We do have a whole lot of partnerships with international NGO just to make sure that we play a major part in talent development, unemployment space in Nigeria and in Africa as a whole. Jobberman is part of the Talent African Company, which is a Pan-African company that does the same thing in Nigeria, Uganda, Kenya, and also Ghana. My panel today, I will do the introduction because I have very powerful and strong women on this panel today. And we will be discussing a whole lot from policies in our organizations to solutions that we might need to adopt going forward in the workplace. I will start off with Abby. Abby Aseku. Sorry, please just give me.
Hi, Samantha.
Hi, Abby. Hi, Abby. So, Abby is I have two Abimbolas, but I'm going to call Abby. Abby is the Executive Director of Future Perspective. Abby, Future Perspective is an initiative of the immediate past Vice President of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Oshibajo. The organization aims to inspire young Africans to spearhead the revolution on the continent by championing education reform and propelling advancement in innovation to solve modern global issues like climate change, which I think is a fantastic initiative. Furthermore, Abby is responsible for overseeing the delivery and execution of all future perspective strategic initiatives in diverse, multicultural, and international environments. Abby has about 20 years experience. That's a long time in the international business development space, management space, and Abby's passion in education has led her to, spearhead several educational initiatives to support quality education and gender equality in sub-Saharan Africa. With our most recent partnership with UNESCO to train about 50 young Nigerian in the edtech innovation space. She currently leads the nonprofit organization called 1MT. So I had to check up, I had to look out on this. This is basically 1 million teachers. That's a lot. And I feel like the environment and the world starts with teaching. It starts from what the young people are grounded in. So Abby, thank you for what you do. I would move over to the second Abimbola. Hi, Abimbola. Abimbola is the Senior Manager, Customer Experience at MTN Nigeria. Abimbola, basically she's responsible for CX in MTN Nigeria. For me, what is very interesting about Abimbola is the ability to also work, but also make an impact through our passion. So aside from what Abimbola does in MTN, Abimbola is a member of WAY. So WAY is women at yellow. So we all know that MTN slogan is yellow. So Abimbola currently leads the career and development stream of Way in MTN since 2013. I like when I see such move because it shows that there's more to what I'm currently doing. I can actually operate in the space irrespective of what I'm currently doing. I'm going to go over to Olaoluwa. This is another very interesting profile. So Olaoluwa is a diversity, equity, and inclusion expert. She's a Nigerian trained lawyer and diversity and inclusion expert. She brings about 9 years of experience in the grassroots, high level gender and equality advocacy, facilitating processes for young people, managing programs on sexuality, reproductive health, and the rights of women and gender in, in total. Ola has served as a consultant with several international NGOs, multilateral organizations, which includes Action Aid, Malala Foundation, International Youth Alliance for Family Planning, UNICEF, and also UN Girls Child Education Initiative. So you can see that our panelists are really, really tilted towards the girl child, the women empowerment, equity, and diversity. So the last and not the least on my list is Joy Agua. Joy is currently the talent acquisition manager at Baker and Ears for Southern for SSA Europe and then also Africa. In Joy's space, Joy has been able to, come up with strategies and solutions to just bridge the gap for talent acquisition in a company. One of the parts that is really unique about Joy's experience is that in her role as a talent acquisition manager, one of the recent things she's done is drive diversity and equity and inclusion by serving as the cheerleader of Baker SSA Women's Network as a result of her passion. So the discussion we're having today is really fueled by passion by my incredible panelists and ladies. So everyone on the other side, welcome to the session today. This session would be a very interactive session. We have the chat box to drop your questions and we will take questions after all. I do have very tailored questions specific to each panelist, but I also have general questions to everyone. So while I was doing my research about this session today, I came across a very interesting data and insights. So I was very particular about the gender balance and number in the oil and gas industry worldwide, not Nigeria in particular. And I came across a very shocking number. If I tell you that across oil industries in the world, you have about 23% women in those companies, which is pretty low. So you have the oil and gas industry and construction industry with very low numbers that are not really increasing. However, Joy has been able to do things in a current company, and I would really like to learn more about what she does in Nigeria going forward. I will start the session by throwing the question open to all the ladies out there. So I would take it, Abby, you can answer the question first, because I have you like next to my face on the screen. Um, what are the common diversity, equity, and inclusion roadblocks that you've witnessed in the workplace or in the work that you do currently?
Thank you so much, Samantha. I think there's a multitude of different, I would say, roadblocks that women face in general. The perception of women, perception of how we conduct business, um, how we lead, in organizations too as well. I think one of the biggest things that I've um, come across is the idea that women are emotional human beings, and because of that, we can't lead effectively. And because of that, sometimes we don't find women in roles, in leadership roles, and in that, in that space, in that club, sometimes it's called. And you have the typical, when you take a look at maybe some multinational companies, you have the typical look of, what that leadership role looks like. And it's jarring, to say the least. But I think most organizations I've come across right now are being very intentional about making sure that we have women in the right positions, based on merit and that they've earned, but also understanding the fact that, because of, in the country that I live in, where as a Black woman, we're minorities, to make sure that we're very intentional about the diversity also of women. Olaoluwa could even speak a lot more into that, in terms of making sure that, minority women are represented in organizations, and they're given the opportunities as well to be in positions that can help foster the growth, and development of any workforce. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abby. Just to buttress what you said and also move that question also. I was having a conversation with someone about the fact that women are too emotional, and that is perceived to be our weakness in terms of leading. However, I feel like if we do a critical analysis or deep down thought about the entire situation, I would say strongly that our being emotional is our key strength, right? Because we're able to lead with empathy, but at the same time, multitask because we're delivering results. So thank you so much on that. So I would go over to Olaoluwa. Could you just share brief of your, experiences with, dealing with roadblocks as regards to DEI?
Yeah, and I just want to piggyback on what you shared. Big women are emotional, and several other myths that people bandy around. There's actually evidence that all of that is not true, right? We're individuals. We have a balance of emotion and logic, and that's what there is to it. It's just a myth that women are more emotional. It's not. It's not scientific. And on that basis, I would start with one of the biggest roadblocks to diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace: unconscious biases and sociocultural norms. And within the gender equality space, we like to call them deep structures. So you have several norms. Policies and strategies don't operate in a vacuum, right? For any policy or strategy to work around diversity or inclusion of women or whoever, there must be people to drive it. And if the people have bias, we know what happens, right? If, for instance, people equate masculinity with leadership, like Abby very brilliantly put across, then when they believe that only men can lead at home or in the community or in government, and women should just be seen and not heard, they're not going to miraculously show up at work and support their female colleagues to grow and advance, right? So these deep structures are really what results in overt and covert pushback against DEI. Another major roadblock, I would say, to DEI is performativity. And we see today that DEI is like that cool kid who everyone wants to hang out with and associate with. You see people putting inclusion as one of their values on their website. They can plaster women's pictures or people living with disabilities, stellar policies on paper, maybe one or two campaigns on days of actions like today. If you go online, people who never said anything about DEI throughout the year are talking about championing women in the workplace. So a lot of this is performative, and even in some organizations, you don't have budgets, you don't have clear strategies, you don't have clear responsibilities, like who is actually accountable for DEI. Some organizations say that they mainstream the responsibility across functions, but what we see is a drowning of women and minorities in this mainstream. People are drowning in the mainstream because it is everybody's responsibility, and everybody's responsibility becomes nobody's responsibility. So we really need to ensure that there is a plan to be accountable to measure what progress looks like for each organization. You find that you come into an organization, there are goals set for marketing, goals set for sales, every other business function. But when it comes to DEI, it's just one of those things that people talk about and pandy around, but there's no clear roadmap as to measuring how we're successful, how we're making progress, etc. So I would say we need to combat these two major things if we really want to make progress on DEI. We need to ensure that we address those deep structures, those social norms that are deeply ingrained in people. And by people, I mean both women and men who show up in the workplace, and also to address performativity, to ensure that we're being very strategic, we're being very specific, and we're being actually authentic in advancing DEI, and it's not just a buzzword or a tick box exercise. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alalu. I think that's very, very strong. It's more than a paper. It's more than a tick. Just tick the box and let's get it moving. It's actually a culture. It should be embedded in what organizations do. So thank you so much for that. I would move over to Abimbola. Okay, she's just dropped off the call. So, Joy, do you mind just shedding a bit of light in terms of
Definitely.
what are the common roadblocks you've experienced?
Thank you, Olalua, for that. I mean, that was very, very spot on and apt because it's part of the things that a lot of organizations are struggling with. And I think I want to add to the roadblocks as being communication and clarity of the vision. So most times, from leadership, we're like, yeah, we're sitting at 13% gender diversity in the company. We want to move to 20% or 50%, whatever, in 2023, for example. And then we see that that is all we hear, but we don't really see the workings, how they do it. So how do you look at that level? So one of the roadblocks is, first of all, communication. There is lack of clear communication and understanding of what the company is trying to do. Why are we even diversifying the workforce? If you don't understand why we're diversifying the workforce, then you can't key into that vision or the goal. So it becomes like a mere exercise to you. The reasons are there. The reasons are because it has been shown that a diverse workforce can be more productive, can see things differently. People, achieve greater things when there is different perspectives coming from different genders, cultures, or beliefs or religions. So that is why we're trying to do this. So it's not like a tick in the box. So once the company or the organization or the employees are able to understand the reason why the company is doing what they're doing, then we begin to see that there's a natural flow of things. Otherwise, we begin to see roadblocks and obstacles, even in the recruitment process. We see hiring managers dragging and saying, no, I don't want this. I want this gender. I don't want this gender, simply because they do not understand the vision of the company. And that lack of clarity is a major roadblock. So that's my contribution.
Thank you so much, very much, Joy. Um, Understanding the why is very, very important, right? And linking the why to the goal is very crucial if we need to move these things forward. Welcome back, Abimbola. Just to take your own part of the question I asked, what are the common roadblocks you've ever had to encounter, or you've ever had to you've seen in your career so far?
Okay, thank you very much. I just would like to probably do a wrap up of the thoughts in the room. So first, I think what's most important is to first be able to diagnose what the underlying issues for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Because that, if we're able to diagnose the underlying issues, so when it comes to us relating it to our culture in an organization, including all our processes and our procedures regarding maybe the recruitment processes, advocacy, if we're able to address that, then we'll start making positive steps in terms of how do we address this issue. So picking from what I think it was probably Joy or Habi said, and building the right solution really is about understanding organization specific issues with regards putting women in inclusion, especially recently these days where there's a general belief that men are stronger in engineering, men are better in technical careers more than women. And that's also even false because right now we see a lot of women, girl child, coming up in terms of being one to represent in the world of technology. right? So I also want to say that even companies generally, we need companies that start redesign their processes and procedures and be deliberate in terms of looking at how and be intentional in terms of ensuring that there's equilibrium, there's a balance, in terms of measuring DEI in the workplace, right? So and when a company make deliberate steps, they're able to educate and train, the workforce for them to understand how important including everyone, whether regardless of your gender, whether you're male, you're female, and being able to ensure that there's a general balance, in terms of looking at the genders in the organization. And also, one of the things I also see that is a barrier is, can I say leadership ego? Because I was reading something, there was a research by BCG, which says that if you look at the data, right, of employee experience and penetration and pay and promotion, those are the things that are important to leaders. But beyond that, leaders usually underestimate the challenges of diverse employee, like what they face, right, in the organization. So all this clear understanding is very important as well, right? So if to wrap it up, I would say that relationship is also important because it's not about the critical mass, but about the critical connection, right? So being able to foster relationship also helps in terms of trust, in terms of collaboration, because collaboration is what actually leads to company organizational successes. So those are the things I feel that we should focus on. And as organizations begin to evolve, I mean, and to ensure that these barriers, no longer exist, just that companies must make deliberate, intentional plan and not pay lip service to what DI means, inclusion means. We need to understand it, break it down, and there be a simpler way, simplify the meaning to organization, to the employees in the organization, and put structures in place in terms of all the processes, whether it's recruitment, whether it's engagement, whether it's advocacy, and be deliberate about it. So that's my thought around the
Thank you
barriers in the
so much.
workplace. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much, Abimbola. So, Joy, I want to ask you a question, right? I know that usually an employee's life cycle starts from recruitment, which is talent acquisition. Right? So, in your space as a talent acquisition specialist and manager currently, like throughout your career, what strategies have you had to personally implement to foster inclusion in your organization? So, be it at the point of recruitment or like continuous.
Thanks. I will apologize for the noise in the background. It's International Women's Day, so everyone in the office is the boss around. But again, the indeed, recruitment is, or recruiter is the gatekeeper. We call ourselves the gatekeeper because we are the ones who open the doors. So what we open is what will happen to you eventually. So if you open to a specific gender alone and not being inclusive, you're going to attract what you open. So for us, it's easier if you're working in an organization that already has a vision and has a goal in terms of diversifying the workspace. So for me, luckily for me, where I'm working, the company had already identified this and have already taken steps to, get some tools. We have a lot of tools right now. AI is the future, and that help you diversify your workforce and all of that. So the tools, I'm on the video call, sorry. So the tools kind of help you diversify, the your job description, for example. So how inclusive are your job descriptions to start with? Because that's the very first thing people see. And if they read the job description and they are not able to tell if it's, how it is, well, there's a research I saw where they say men will easily apply to anything they see online. But a woman would think twice and be like, is this for me? We keep second guessing because we want to be sure that we really, really match it 100%. But a man would just go and say, you know what can happen? Let me just go for it. So again, how inclusive are your job descriptions that anyone who sees it is encouraged to apply regardless of their gender? So again, that is the first thing or one of the things you can do and that we've been doing. And then when we're putting together the slate in the recruitment process, um, putting together or putting forward a shortlist. Well, how inclusive are you as well? How inclusive are you in your screening? And Ololuwa mentioned unconscious bias. Unfortunately, We all have it in our beliefs, in our cultures, whatever it is. Some people just feel like some women can't do some certain jobs. A recruiter might have that unconscious bias. First of all, we need to debias that process. So again, for us, we have lots of unconscious bias trainings available to employees. So if you're a hiring manager, existing, new, intending, you are being told, okay, I know you're now going to be in the recruitment process for us, and you're going to be hiring for your team. You may want to consider some biases that you may have that you may not be aware of in the process. And so we encourage you to take those trainings. The more we talk about unconscious bias, the more you are aware of it. If you don't talk about it, we all have biases. I do have mine. So I need to once in a while check myself and say, Joy, why did you make that decision? Was it because you were thinking this way? So you call yourself to order and then you're able to, get back on track. So those are some of the things that we've been able to do as a company put together. Of course, in the recruitment process as well, it's all hands on deck from the recruiter to the hiring manager in the process to the interviewers, stakeholders, and then we also include panel and what's it called interview panel, diverse interview panel. So think about your interview panel. Is it only male dominated? Do you want to have a gender, a female in that space who can come and help you bring a different perspective, and then it gives you multiple options to make an informed decision in your hiring. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Joy. I think that's a lot. That was really, really packed. The important thing is intentionality, because sometimes, like you said, we do have biases, but we're not even aware of it, right? So it's like you need to like critically assess yourself, like be very critical with yourself and your thought process. Am I actually doing this from an okay point, or am I actually doing it in line with what the business requires? So it's having that intentionality as regards to hiring and mentoring. But I want to ask you the same question, but this is as regards to team management and maybe performance management in your team. Um, how have you been able to streamline it and ensure that you foster inclusion with projects across your team?
Thanks a lot, Samantha. Okay, so within my team, what is most critical is to actually, understand your team and start and ensure that to promote diversity. You need to what I also do is to do active listening, right? So one of the key things is to ensure that you give everybody a voice, amplify the voice of every member of the team. So that way, when that opportunity or chance or the opportunity to be able to be heard, right? People it gives people more confidence, right, in terms of engagement. So you listen to people, you create groups. I create groups to ensure that people have the opportunity to speak out on issues, and this also helps in terms of creating inclusion, right, within the team. And also, one of the key things that we also do, within my team and the organization, is that we ensure that we some mention unconscious bias. So we start with training. So that training, especially unconscious bias, it also releases people so people understand what bias means, right? Because we all have biases and we try to hide or pretend. So when there's opportunity for people to be able to speak up, so we can take and they're educated about what to do in terms of handling issues, how to also build relationships in terms of advocation, and also be able to enrich themselves in terms of talking about how they feel, and they can also respect each other. So one of the key things for me is to ensure that people have opportunity to their voice to be heard, amplify people's voices, and be able to create space and opportunity for people to express themselves, right, regardless. And also, training is also important, right, to ensure that people go on training and they understand and respect each other's spaces, within the organization. So one of the things I also want to mention is that we should consciously create like a group, an employee user group within the organization, and also to constantly listen, and also to create opportunities for surveys and feedback, right? So when trainings are done, when people are educated, and of course, and we are putting focus on being included, inclusion of other people within the team. You also ensure to do feedback to ensure that whatever initiatives or processes that you put in place as an organization is being done and is reflecting, and you can measure the impact with the feedback. So that's for me one of the things that's critical, in terms of managing the process and
Thank you so
improving the
much,
workplace.
Abibola.
Thank you.
I think what stood out for me is creating a safe space. And I feel like that particular thing is really underestimated, because if you give people the opportunity to actually speak out and be free to actually say what is bothering them or how they feel they could be better included in certain things, or even from projects that you want to be a part of. So irrespective of maybe it feels like it's hardcore labor or whatever. But if a female comes to say, okay, I want to be part of this project, it's because we had created a safe space for them. And one other thing that I have picked from this conversation so far is just starting off, but training on diversity and inclusion. That is one thing that needs to be done by a lot of organizations, because it's that continuous, hammering on the gear and hearing everything that has to be as regards to diversity and inclusion that people can actually move forward with. So my other question, I'm going to throw it to Abby and Olaoluwa. With your experience in this space, how do you think that we can encourage our male colleagues or friends or siblings or allies to participate in promoting gender equality and inclusive in the workforce and even beyond the workforce? So I don't want to really streamline it to just the workplace, because sometimes we work on different projects that are away from the workplace. So looking at those things, how do you think we can actually get them to be more accommodating, to promote what we are doing today? So beyond Women's Day also. Yeah. So I
Okay.
will start off with Abby and
Yes,
then we would move to Olaoluwa.
I think it's uh, walking the walk and talking the talk, right? So I have four younger brothers. And I have an older sister and then four younger brothers. So I've got boys in my family. And I think it starts from that too as well. And I have a son, as well. And it's really how you communicate to them, and being very vocal about your passion, your aspirations, as well as to what you want to see, your vision, as well. So if you want to get more male counterparts, colleagues, family members, I think it's important that those conversations are had as often as possible, and that you're also leading in terms of your actions too as well. So, for example, at Future Perspectives, we want women in the workforce, but we also want, and I think Abimbola said it, equilibrium too as well. So while I'm making sure that we're mentoring young women and bringing them on, I'm also being intentional about the men too as well, and making sure that we are having this diverse group of people, and it's not just about gender, right? It's a whole multitude of things, their backgrounds, their experiences, as well as ethnicity, religion. I mean, you just name it, you have to have everything. So um, you can't really expect more from people if you're not doing it yourself, right? So you have to lead by example. And if you do that, then the hope is that you would have this ripple effect on the people who are around you, so that they see what you see. Because if you're doing it the right way, you will have success, right? And so if you have success, then they're more apt to want to adopt some of those things that you are doing, to ensure that in their workplace or in their home or in whatever projects that they're doing, that they're taking some of those things that they've learned from you. You kind of talk about unconscious bias. It's like this unconscious way of like adopting things because you've been around it so much that it now becomes a part of you, becomes a part of your DNA. So I think that's, for me personally, and as well as professionally, I think that's the best way to do it, is that constant communication, but also walking the walk, and being a leader in that space.
Thank you very much, Abby. Olaoluwa, could you share
Yeah,
your
I mean, Abby took the words right out of my mouth. I think we need to broaden the conversation around DEI, because nowadays when people hear DEI, they automatically think, oh, just or equity. They automatically think, oh, you're talking about women. And that's not the case, right? We're talking about a workplace where everyone belongs, regardless of how they identify, what their background is. And just to dip more into the conversation about bias, there are different kinds of bias that affect men as well. So there's affinity bias, where you just want to hire people who look like you, people who went to the same kind of universities. In fact, some organizations say with pride, we only hire people who went to A, B, C, D, E, F universities. That's affinity bias, and it affects men. There's ageism, where if you are above a particular age, you can work in some sectors. That affects men as well. There's authority bias. People don't take what you're saying seriously unless it's coming from someone who is higher up, and they assume that because the person is higher up, the person knows what they're saying, right? So just broadening the conversation and pulling men in to see that these issues actually also affect men, in addition to the more women specific issues in the workplace. And I think that's a great way to really pull people into the table, to show that everyone really has a stake within DEI, and everyone can thrive if we advance all of these policies. Another thing that I think is critical when we're talking about ensuring that male allies join us in the DEI gospel is really using evidence and data. And when I say evidence and data, it doesn't have to be only numbers, right? It can be stories. It can be stories of change. It can be stories of impact, demonstrating and showing what is possible when we have a more inclusive workplace. So Abimbola was talking about how there's actually data that shows that when you have a more diverse team, especially when it comes to gender diversity, when it comes to diversity in sociocultural backgrounds, you have a more creative team. You have a team that achieves more, a higher performing team. It's actually scientific data, like it's proven. So we need to uplift this in terms of practical ways, demonstrating and showing how becoming more diverse and becoming more inclusive has actually increased, productivity. And everybody wants to be on the winning team, whether male, female, whoever you are, everyone wants to be on the winning team. And uplifting the stories is a great way to pull people in, regardless of their gender.
Can I
Thank you
say
very much.
something?
Oh
Sorry, real
yeah,
quick.
yes, yes, no, no, it's fine.
I just took the unconscious bias training. And so I really resonate, especially with affinity bias, because I think even for me, I sometimes have that, right? So you go to a function, right? And you're around the people that you know, the people that you're comfortable with, right? You form like your little group, and you're not expanding yourself beyond, maybe because you guys work together, or you went to the same university, or you're in the same social club. So you're like together, right? And you're not giving yourself the opportunity to expand and be diverse too in the people that you get to meet as well. And I think that's why this platform is so great, because I'm meeting people that I will maybe not really meet, maybe some time in the future, yes, but this platform has brought really diverse women together to discuss issues and stuff like that. So I really wanted to kind of go back to Olaoluwa, because I just took my unconscious bias training, so I'm being more conscientious of even some of my weaknesses, and making sure I I acknowledge them quickly so that I can correct myself.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Abby. Um, Joy, I have a question to ask you. Um, so in just banking on the data I provided that I got, so we know that in the oil and gas industry, it is really a male-dominated industry. So now looking at a number of 22% of just female alone. So which means that you have more than half of your workforce being male. And this is not there are different factors that you really affect this. So this is really beyond us as recruiters, as gatekeepers, HR people as gatekeepers. But then you're thinking about what exactly does the business require. So in your space and in your experience, how have you been able to like consciously implement or come up with strategies to actually, create opportunities for women. So opportunities that opportunities in terms of recruitment and also beyond recruitment. So I know that you are in the talent acquisition space, but in that space also, maybe within your team, how are you able to, create promotions for women, right? Like create a room for them, create growth for them, and just be very deliberate about the 22 percentage or lead or less than 20 percentage that we have in the workforce.
So thanks. So this percentage, right? And everybody's struggling with this. It's a global struggle, right? In terms of that oil and gas space, male dominated, we've come a long way. But again, I think I want to start from the beginning, which is start them young. The pipeline is very important. So we talk about STEM, we talk about everybody talks about these things. But is there intentional? Are we intentional about it? Are we intentional about feeding that future pipeline? So that's one place we can all start from. You feed it and then okay, fine. I can tell you for free that we don't naturally struggle with the entry levels to be fair. When we post a job, if I post an entry level job, we can get like 50,000 CVs. But as we begin to post mid senior level, the female funnel begin to reduce, and we're like, what's going on? Where are they? So again, to your point, life would happen in terms of people want to get married. You can see a woman who has been on the field for a while, and then she's like, you know what, I want to go start a family, and then she takes up an office-based role. So that technical space, and when we're talking about oil and gas, we might want to break it down a little bit. There are the function roles, which is like the HR, the finances, and all of us, right, that are here. And then we have the very technical people where we really want to diversify that workforce. That workforce, we feel there are some women who are a bit not confident enough to come up and turn up in that space. And that is where mentoring coaching, comes up to encourage women to please step on and take on this technical role. So even though we are feeding the tunnel from the universities and from the secondary schools, and then how do we maintain them within that industry, and then we're not losing them in that technical space? And even if we're losing them at all, let's lose them to the functional roles. It's still okay. But at least we're not losing them completely within the oil and gas industry. But then again, above and beyond that, every company has to be intentional. I say this because I can give you all the female hires or create all the positions. If you have not made intentional policies to keep them, attraction, retention policies to keep them, then you may lose them, and then all your hard work is in vain. So again, companies have to be intentional to make policies that favor and include, not favor, let me not use favor, that include women, include them. And that's what we're talking about here. Include them in the sense that if this role is up, are we considering women? Are we training them? Are we closing the gaps in terms of learning and development? You have identified, okay, for example, Joy needs to get to this level. What does Joy need to get to that level? Are you helping me as my manager, as my people leader, to ensure that I am, in succession plan for that role? And then you are intentional enough to know, okay, even if it's ratios, start on your product line in your team. If in your team already, you have all male in your team, then I have a question for you. That's already a problem. That means that person needs to look inward and say, how do I diversify this team? I think is an action or a call to action for everyone, irrespective of where you find yourself in the chain of things or in the scheme of things, whether be it in organization leadership or even if you are just a support function or team, is looking inwards and saying, this team, how diverse is my team? Let's start from there. And then let's work our way upwards or work our way backwards to ensure that we're achieving our goal. But I think it's all hands on deck. And everyone, wherever you find yourself, always stop and ask your question, how diverse is my team? Look back and look at your team and see if there are things maybe you need to do to include. And then maybe you need to work with HR, and say, hey, HR, I want to really diversify my team. We're always very happy to, when we hear these things from people, leaders and managers, to say, okay, these are the things and the strategies you can put in place. But again, I was end by saying being intentional is the only way we can achieve these things, because otherwise all our strategies and everything might fall to the cracks.
I feel a bit so now I'm going to turn it back in the space of HR, like in our own career, right? It's almost like a female dominated industry, right? So most times within your team, as an HR person, you're looking, do I have a male in my team? That's our own diversity and inclusion, because do we really have Well, I do have actually. I have a couple of males on my team, so it works that way. So I'm going to ask Abimbola the next question, and this is as regards to leadership. Um, the numbers and representation of women in leadership positions, like C-suites, is increasing over time, and I'm really excited about this. Not because of the fact that maybe some companies are trying to, meet that quota of women in leadership, but because the women are actually giving value, right? Because if you don't deliver value, you can't make leadership, right? But I'm excited that both of them are going hand in hand because the women that are taking up these leadership positions are actually showing and proving that they are great at what they're doing. So now coming back to MTN, how would you actually advocate for gender balance in leadership role within the corporate world? So beyond MTN, within MTN and elsewhere, how would you advocate for this?
All right, thank you very much, Samantha. Thank you very much, and I'm glad that you mentioned my organization where I work, because I mean, we've all been mentioning intentional, intentional, intentional. I'm bringing it home, right? Is that for this, for us to be able to drive this inclusion that we're talking about, leadership commitment is critical, right? So what I mean is that if the leaders agree or are intentional and they make policies and plans to ensure that women are given important roles in the organization, then it will trickle down into policies, into processes, into actualization, yeah, because it's deliberate, it's intentional. So in my own organization, I can proudly say that leadership level, we have quite a very fantastic mix of male and female gender balance, right? We have about 8 women in leadership positions, and this is fantastic. And I give kudos to our current CEO, who is definitely focused on ensuring that women empowerment, women leading, women starting out is very critical, because actually if you look at it, we women we make better we make better decisions and we do better, in terms of managing resources and processes. That's the truth. So beyond policies, beyond leadership focus, right? There's also women themselves looking at career and skill advancement. So we sit down to say, as a woman, what do I want to become? And that is really, really intentional. So within skills or within job functions that are male dominated, which has to do with IT, with network, right? We see that I mean, it's an intentional thing, because you must be ready as a woman, as an individual. You must be ready to also, I mean, because we see those rules as something that is technical, like it's hard, it's difficult. So you need to be very focused and be intentional and planning to say, if my career path in life, if I want to follow, is IT or network, then what kind of support system do I have around me? What kind of deliberate plan do I have in terms of ensuring that I focus on, and in terms of doing all that, we can start challenging the gender stereotypes in the organization, right? And so that way, when you see a woman who has value, who is very brilliant, who has good ideas, who has good initiative, why would she not be able to compete anywhere where men are generally? And this also has to do with self-esteem as well. I also won't go to that. So personally, as individuals, as a woman, or whatever gender we want to say, self-esteem is very important, because culturally in our country, in Nigeria, just looking at it, I'm going to go global, but Nigeria, we have a thinking to say men are superior, men are, generally, right? So at the point where we start seeing a lot of women stand out, in terms of they are honing their own, they are professionals in their area, professional in their career, and they are focused and they are putting all their best in. So when an opportunity comes, in terms of when the opportunity comes to us to show this, then you see women stepping up into those roles and doing extremely fantastic and very well. So there are different ways. So empowering women, creating us. And what I also want to say is that when we see all these women, as women leaders emerge, women also try to pull each other up, right? So as you imagine, you're a leader, you're right up there what are you doing in terms of ensuring that women under you down the lines are also, coming up in terms of mentorship, mentoring them, right? Mentorship, being available, networking, and deliberate plans, to ensure that these women are also coming up, and you're also mentoring them and developing them and all that. So there are several ways we can do that. But I mean, the most important thing is to ensure that leadership commitment is important. Then when we see this, when we may start emerging, we must start also offering career guidance to younger ladies coming up, or maybe other women, other things coming up, to ensure that we deliberately churn out these numbers. And as we're proving our own, then men start to see that, yes, women are here. And then without, I'm talking about challenging gender stereotypes. Many will also see that, yes, this woman is adding value, So beyond that, in my organization, you see a lot of women, even in technical teams. We have lots of general managers that are female, and this is also inspiring to women that are upcoming to say, yes, I want to be like this. And then all together, so that some of those things that we have to put. So policies are important, then leadership commitment, and also being able to break down the silos, effective communication, trainings, and empowerment. It goes a long way to ensure that organizations were able to deal with that. And that's what we're strong on in MTN, and we're doing very well. We're looking at the quota, because quota is also important, and we're ensuring that we're for each unit, each division. When you want to give a woman an opportunity, in terms to prove themselves, and then we were able to achieve what we have. So we're doing very well. I can say that to my organization. I hope that other people can learn. And I can also see that we had a meeting today where we had the women program, and we are seeing women CEOs emerging. Women are CEOs in banks. We're seeing women in tech. Emerging. So it's a deliberate effort. And once a woman is empowered, you also look at planning. How do we empower other people, other female, to also come up? I think those are things that we should also be focused on. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Abimbola. Just to say that during my not just research, so I am very particular about like seeing women grow and actually watching their growth and seeing the results they've done from what they've been able to do. And the number of women leading business, especially the banking sector, is really impressive. Apart from them just leading the banking industry or taking up those roles, is the numbers, is the revenue, is the impact they've been able to make, which is really, really impressive. Just to add to that, what I picked from you is there's a girls' guide slogan which says be prepared. And that is really no joke. You cannot be in the career or you want to be in a leadership position or you're in your career and you don't feel like you need to take a step towards, growing your own career. So it's a personal thing. It's a personal development. So at any point in time, be prepared for the next step that you need to go to. So which is in line with what Abimbola said. So I'm going to ask Olaoluwa a question, just flowing off what Abimbola said. Is Olaoluwa here? Do I move to Abi?
I am here. I have a 3-year-old employer who is taking control here.
It's
Apologies.
Women's Day, diversity.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
Okay. So in your work as a diversity and equity and inclusion expert, how have you been able to advocate for girls or ladies or women's rights? And can you tell us about an experience that you've been able to turn a girl's life around in terms of what she needs to achieve in terms of career? Like, what could a career path be? Have you been able to guide someone through that journey? Just before you answer the question, I want to tell the participants, please drop your questions. We can see the comments and questions. We're looking at it, and then we will take it after the session. Olaoluwa, the floor is over to you. Opened.
Yeah, thank you very much, Samantha. I really think it's important. When Joy was talking about the pipeline, I was nodding away because it's really important that we catch them young. And that's what majority of my work has been focused on through an NGO I founded as a law student in Nigeria sometime in 2014. The organization is called Girl Pride Circle Initiative. And what we really focused on was really getting adolescent girls to understand self-esteem, to understand leadership, to take up space. And I can cite one example that really makes me proud. We had some partners in Kenya who reached out to us and told us about a scholarship that MasterCard Foundation was funding. So they were funding fully funded scholarship for bachelor's education for young women who are from underserved backgrounds, from underprivileged backgrounds. And my organization was able to work with the partner and another partner in Nigeria to sort of mentor 5 girls to submit the applications to this process. So we guided them. These are girls that don't even have laptops. Like we had to provide, stipends for them to be able to go to, apologies for the background noise. So we had to provide stipends for them to go to, cyber cafes to submit this application. We had to write, recommendation letters for them. It was very grueling, but at the end of the day, 2 of them made it through the process. And we're talking about girls that, they were not even sure that they were going to have undergraduate education because their families really did not have the means, right? So we were able to get 2 of them in. One of them got admitted to study pharmacy. Another one, I think it's epidemiology and biostatistics. Yes, and it's in the United States, or United States International University, Africa. The university is in Nairobi, and they will be there for 4 years, like fully funded. The last time I spoke to them, they're even sending money home from their stipends. That's how sort of shifting that scholarship has been for them. And what is more, they also applied for grants to do community projects back at home, because the scholarship also funds their holiday flights. They come home, I think, twice a year for holiday. So during one of those holidays, 2 of them also got grants from, I think, their university or MasterCard Foundation, I'm not sure, to do community projects. And they sent me, they sent pictures. One of them built a borehole, like she revived a borehole project that had gone dormant in the community to provide water for people within the community in Ikorodu. Another one of them, somewhere around Ota in Ogun State, did a skill acquisition sort of program where she provided seed grants to people who were into fashion designing and some other skills that get some young women in the community going. And they're just undergraduates. So from just being guided to apply for an opportunity to getting the scholarship, sort of getting their careers going, and being able to give back to their families, being able to give back to their communities, it's really something that I look back on and say, despite all of the stress and all of the difficulties that come with working in the space, it's really fulfilling that I get to be a part of that kind of transformation. So really focusing on adolescent girls is super, super important. And I will never pass up an opportunity to invest in girls, because the girls of today are the powerful women of tomorrow.
Thank you very much, Olaoluwa. Abby, over to you. So with your numerous years of experience in the international business development space, which is really impressive, how have you been able to leverage your expertise to promote gender equality and empower women in multicultural environments that you've been a part of?
Thanks, Samantha. Um, I'm just trying to look at over the last 20 years of working when I first started in the US as an African girl, immigrant, trying to navigate my way around big, multifaceted organizations. And I think you have to, and I think we talked about it, it's having that self-esteem, right? And knowing who you are and what you can bring to the table. And so I think that was one thing that I started on from a really young age, is just knowing who I am. I went to college, so to me it's like I am equal to everybody that's in here too as well, so it was always that mindset for me. And then using that opportunity to also, I would say, volunteer myself into different programs or projects that were beyond my 9 to 5 everyday job, and then pulling people in to say, hey, I'm doing this project, I think this would be interesting for you to come along and tag along with. And I think that's how it started. And it's been very successful. Another opportunity is just, which we've talked about, and then especially Olaoluwa, really honed in on that, is just when we talk about diversity, it's very, very broad, right? So there's just a number of factors that really create this pool of diverse people. So a prime example would be when we just had our project with UNESCO ISALC in November, and when we went through the application process. So we did a call to application back in August of last year. 87% of the people who applied were men in the EdTech sector. 13% were women. And from that, we had to drill it down. So we ended up selecting 50 people. Out of that 50% were women and 50% were men. And the reason why we chose 50% women was that we wanted to give the opportunity for women also to be in that space and to show that women can also be in that edtech space. But it wasn't just even about women as well. It was about diversity of just the entire 50 people. Are we bringing people from the Northeast? Are we people from the Southwest and the Southeast and the South? Because everybody's background is so different and they bring so much to the table too as well. And because of that, we had this fantastic group of 50 young individuals who came in with so much background experience and diversity. And so we're really proud of that, that out of having 13% women apply, we still had 50%. That was our target, that was our goal, and we were not moving away from that. So I think it's really important that when you're doing things, that you bring people along with you. And some of them may be reluctant, to come in, but encourage them. And maybe sometimes you have to be a little bit forceful, because you do see the light at the end of the tunnel and you do see the benefit. They may not see it in like short term, but you're already seeing that long term vision and how those projects could benefit them, could benefit the organization. And so I really encourage that, to make sure that we're really pulling people along. And then going back to what Olaoluwa said, not be mindful of the affinity bias, that you're not just pulling people along that are in your ecosystem and that you're used to, but that you're really stretching out, I would say, your tentacles to people that you would not normally maybe communicate with, but you've heard about them, you've heard about the things that they're doing and the impact that they're making, that you bring them and pull them into your ecosystem, and so that you can have like a successful environment of just really diverse people.
Thank you so much, Abby. So I'm going to ask a question about mentoring. However, Olaolu has touched on that to an extent. I want to ask Abimbola, in your experience so far, what role has mentoring played with people, with you also in particular, growing up, or rather coming up the career ladder? How has mentoring assisted you, and how have you used mentoring to also encourage other ladies in your team and outside your team to just take more space?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, clearly.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you very much. So mentorship programs. I mean, it's not. It succeeds when when it's a valued project or plan or a talent management strategy. So mentorship for me, because I'm also I'm a mentee to some people. I'm also a mentor to some people as well. So what is most important, right, is that um, these days, I mean, in terms of, because I mentioned something around self-esteem earlier, many women struggle with such barriers, right? And then what a mentor would do is that if probably across the, I mean, based on experience, right? A mentor will be able to recognize and leverage on individual strength of people, of those mentors or mentees, right? And when you're able to identify people's inner strength, then you can help them in terms of bringing up those values, those internal strengths, and what they can do with it, and how they can showcase it and helps them to drive value, right? So for me, um, um, one of the focus key ideas for me is that I also like to look at people's in terms of their career plan and growth, right? So as a mentor, you have to be deliberate in focusing on people's sort of personalizing that experience with the mentee in terms of knowing how far the person can go and give advice and guidance in terms of what the person can do and sort of guide that person through that journey, where the person now can learn and now build his own experiences, right? And also another thing that mentorship also do is also helps to overcome self-limiting beliefs, right? Because most times, as an individual, right, especially when you work in an environment where maybe there's no balance, really, or maybe your work that you do you think is more gender based towards a particular is focus more on a gender, then you start having your own inside yourself to say, am I fit, right? Am I fit to handle this? Do I have the requirement to be able to deliver results? So, but as a mentor, we have. If you, I mean, that's why mentorship is important because a mentor would also, help to overcome such self-limiting beliefs in terms of helping that individual to develop resilience, right? And all these things comes from sharing experiences, right? So, a child as a mentor, if you've gone through your own ladder of growth, right, and you see, the challenges you faced as an individual, you can pass on those kind of skills in terms of helping your mentees to also gain confidence in their own abilities and their strength. So, for me, so these are some of the things that have helped me in my career growth, because I've learned to gain confidence when I know that I mean I've gone through the process, right? I've gone through the process. I've engaged. I'm looking up to some people ahead of me who has also gone through that experience before, and I see how strong and how well they've come out of, yeah, and how well they're doing. So it also helps me to also maybe to focus and say, yes, I want to be like this person. And what are those things I need to do to drive that? So as a mentor, because I'm part of the mentorship program, and what we also do is to identify people. And first, of course, you must also give yourself up that you need to be mentored. Really, that's the first step. I mean, you must also recognize that you need to be mentored. And the truth about as you go, and you advance in life in your career, you need a mentor to guide you. I mean, it's part of the leadership. I mean, we've gone through trainings and all that. Those are the key fundamentals in terms of growth in career. You need a mentor to take you through. So it's important that a mentor provides guidance and support, right? In terms of and that also helps to also guide in terms of trainings that an individual needs to excel. Then also you learn from people experiences and also communication and also and inclusion as well. So for me, mentorship is very critical. It's helped me in terms of even getting my confidence, and also getting me to develop my leadership skill and also career guidance, and also most important, the network opportunities. If you have a mentor, and the mentor can guide in terms of influencing valuable connections, where you can go, valuable pathways, and how to grow and achieve. So those, so it's for me. So mentorship is very critical in terms of career growth, and also it's also good to also encourage people that are upcoming to also subscribe to going to mentorship programs and getting that kind of support for people that are already leaders, that are already leaders. And also the leaders should also make themselves available as well to also mentor the other people that are upcoming as well. So that's
Thank you so much, Abibola. So we have some questions from the comment section, but I would just streamline it to so I'm going to ask Abby. Someone is asking, is there specific recommendations you would suggest to help organizations embrace DEI into their culture. So I know we've spoken about we've given them, everyone has given different aspect, but just in a summary, Abby, do you want to just shed light to that person just to um, put your thoughts together on that?
Yeah, I think all the women on the platform have mentioned it. I believe that the most functional way to be able to adopt that and do it at scale, depending on the kind of organization that you're in, whether it's a small, mid-size, or large organization, is through the trainings, right? And the processes and policies that you have in place. So I think if organizations have those policies, their values, and the values are communicated, and those policies are communicated, a result of it would be to have trainings that we know, whether they're annual trainings or biannual trainings that show the commitment to wanting to foster that kind of environment, right? But like I said, it has to start with communication from the top down approach, and bottom up approach too as well.
Thank you so much, Abby. There's a question for you, Olalua. This person asks us, what metrics can be used to effectively measure progress on cultivating a diverse, inclusive, and equitable workplace and even society at large? It's a lot, but yeah. There's workplace
Yeah.
and society at large.
Yeah, so really there's no one size fits all metrics that all organizations can use, really. And I think having that mindset of like copy and paste is planning to fail on DI advancement. So it's really evaluating the current structure, the current goals, the current identity of the organization, and really tailoring metrics that help you advance the goals of that particular organization. So, speaking generally, you can measure diversity in leadership. You can measure, retention rate, diversity across retention rate. You can measure, employee satisfaction. You can measure, participation in employee resource groups, for instance. But really, I think it's definitely worth it investing in working with a professional to tailor some of these approaches. And this is me selling my market. If you if you need some expert advice, someone to handhold your organization, or your company on DI approaches, DI practices, feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. So I have a last question for everyone, and this is one that I think, I wouldn't say majority, but it's a concern in Africa and Nigeria as a whole. So you have some women who are underprivileged, underrepresented. How do we ensure that they have a voice? So be it in leadership, be it at the workplace, be it in the society in general. What can we do to foster that diversity at that level? So I will start with Abby and move to Abimbola and then Olaoluwa and then Joy.
You have to ingrain it in your culture. It has to be embedded in your DNA, right? Like I said, we had that project that we had with UNESCO last November, and it was really important for us, like I said, not only to have women, but to be represented from all the six geo zones, and then to really, and then we gave priority to marginalized communities, right? We wanted people from those places to be able to have a voice. So it has to be ingrained, I believe, in your policies and how you operate, that this is what you want to do. And then you then seek action to make sure that you're following through with those policies that you've kind of, like Olaoluwa said, you put on paper. It looks so pretty. It looks really nice. It's saying all the right things, and you have all the right buzzwords. But really, when you want to look at how it's the effectiveness of it and the actions, there are no actions or solid actions really backing that stuff up. So I think it's like a twofold thing: is really embedding that into your organizational culture, but at the same time to making sure you're taking those necessary steps and you have that laid out as to how you're going to carry out the execution of those policies that you've put into place to ensure that those people's voices are heard and they are seen as well.
Thank you so much, Abby. Very spot on. Abimbola, over
Okay,
to
thank
you.
you very much.
Yes.
So I'll just put down like four ways to help the unrepresented individuals, right? So first of all, we need to ensure that, like Abby said, policies and processes should be in place, right? And these policies should be reviewed regularly, and also this policy should be able to identify biases or barriers, for this particular group that we're talking about, and beyond that, being able to provide training and education, which will offer diversity, right, and also offer inclusion to all employees. So even though you know that there's a group that you're looking at, but you must ensure that everyone within that space are trained, they understand, you raise an awareness, positive awareness on unconscious biases, and also to also be able to promote empathy and understanding, right, to the unrepresented. And thirdly, I also like to say that we have to also provide support networks, right? So these support networks are groups or affinity groups that will represent this group of employees. So where they can share the experience, right? And there you can provide mentorship for who needs mentorship, and also to also promote their work as well, and also being able to give them voices, right? And from that voice they can advocate for each other, and that there and then confidence and self-confidence, self-esteem starts building from there, right? And they are nurtured, and we keep nurturing them. So lastly for me, which is mostly important, right, is actively listening to this group, right? Listen to their perspectives, their experiences, and be able to validate their feelings, right? And take their feedback seriously. So from there, when you take feedback, you'll be able to improve on the policies or processes that you set in place. And you can also even look at tailored need trainings for this group of people. Thank you. Those are my thoughts. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much, Abimbola. Olaolu, over to you.
Yeah, Abimbola, I really agree with your points on listening, because you see that many organizations consult every other person but the underrepresented group when they are trying to design programs that sort of empower and elevate the voices of those groups. And so it's important to really invest in listening to those, having the humility to rely on their expertise, because no one can be more expert than who has the lived experience. Another thing I would like to mention in terms of support is advancing peer mentorship, really creating opportunities for people who are going through. As much as intergenerational mentorship is important, I think it's great to also have spaces where people who are in similar trajectories, going through similar stages, can speak. If you want to consult someone about, I want to negotiate for a raise, how do you think I can do it? Or how are you navigating motherhood while you build your business? So just to have a North Star sort of, as people, especially underrepresented women, navigate this. The final point I want to make is investing in adolescent girls' empowerment. This is really, really important, and we can't emphasize it enough. We can't overemphasize it. Having worked with thousands of adolescent girls over the past 9 years, we really see that some common complaints are, oh, boys are speaking over them both at home and at school. They're automatically becoming the assistant, this and that, because the boy has to be the main leader. They can't do certain subjects, or they're expected to do food and nutrition as opposed to further maths, and all of those nonsense really that is thriving within our education systems. And so I think private sector stakeholders need to actually join hands with CSOs and governments to ensure that we eradicate all of this mindset, because you can draw a straight line from all of those kind of conditioning to how women approach opportunities in the workplace when they become professionals. So someone cited the issue of men applying readily for opportunities. It's actually proven that men apply for opportunities when they meet at least 60% of the requirements, while women tend to wait to meet the requirements 100% before applying. You can draw a straight line from that experience as adolescent girls, lack of assertiveness, lack of confidence, fear of doing too much or grabbing too much attention. And girls bring this eventually to womanhood and bring it to the workplace and in their careers and in their life in general. So this is really a clarion call for everybody to make it their business, for girls to unlearn all of these social cultural norms that don't really serve us in this day and age. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Olaloa. Joy, are you there? Apologies, she's having network issues, but I think she's here. Joy. Okay, so while we're waiting for Joy, I'm just going to say a big thank you. I will try and summarize all the valuable insights I have gotten. Like my notepad is so full from everything we've said so far. And then the comment sections are just, resounding and then giving their own support of everything that has been said, taking notes, and just also affirming that what we've discussed was highly impactful. In a nutshell, I would just summarize that in order to actually have a very, diversity, like a very diversified work environment, workforce, either be it project or whatever the case is, it's important that we also emphasize on training, as all our speakers have spoken about. Training is very valuable and we should not neglect training. So this is not the technical or soft skills. This is training on diversity and inclusion. It's important that we unlock that unconscious bias, either through hiring or, either through promotion or whatever the case is. It's important that we also do a final check on ourselves. Do an audit on yourself. Check, am I actually being biased? Either through at the point of interview, at the point of looking at CVs, as regards to a particular role. And as HR people and as company owners and as consultants, be it whatever your career is, it's also important that we show support and communicate. It's important that we link our culture to our diversity and inclusion policy. There has to be a link. And then our employees also need to understand the why, as to why are we exactly doing this. It's not a feel-good initiative. It's just to show that we need to have a workforce that is inclusive in gender, inclusive in thought process, inclusive in age, so inclusive in cultural background. So that's very, very important. And what is very essential is management or leadership buy-in or company buy-in, because without that, diversity is just a tick in the box. So as leaders, as business owners, as managers, as you're growing up, as you're coming up in your career, it's always important that we look at diversity as not a feel-good initiative, but something that we need to embed in every aspect of our life. Thank you so much to all our speakers today. Thank you to everyone that has participated in this session. Thank you so much for the comment. And from the comment section, I can see that everybody actually enjoyed the session. Thank you so much, Abby, for taking our time to be a part of this session. Thank you so much, Abimbola, for being a part of this. Thank you so much, Olaoluwa, for being a part of this. Thank you so much, Joy, for taking our time. International Women's Day is a busy day for women. For you people to take our time, it's 1 hour, 30 minutes. Take our time of your busy schedule to be with us. Thank you so much. And I know that you have other activities and events to attend to today. Just before we close the session, it would be nice to actually have the sign of this year, just as we close the session. So Joy, I will do this on behalf of you. So this is for me and Joy. And thank you guys so much. Again, feel free to check the Jobberman website and feel free to use our free listing platform and just contact us for any of your job vacancies or employment requests. Thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your day. Happy International Women's Day to every wonderful women out there. Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Thank you, Samantha.
Bye. Thank you, Samantha. Thank you, Joy. Allow you.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye,
Abby.
everyone.
Thank you. Bye.